The crew departs on a mission to hunt giant Pacific halibut across some of the most formidable grounds in the North Pacific. These industrial drums are engineered to withstand the immense torque of giant Pacific halibut weighing several hundred kilograms. Far offshore, giant Pacific halibut settle along deep continental shelves where only large industrial ships operate safely. Locating giant Pacific halibut requires reading depth transitions where food, oxygen, and bottom structure align. These systems reveal narrow depth bands where giant Pacific halibut concentrate along cold, nutrient-rich slopes. Years of catch records guide captains toward productive corridors where giant Pacific halibut repeatedly appear.
Every tool aboard is designed for one purpose: deploying long lines capable of controlling giant Pacific halibut from extreme depths.
Only a vessel of this size provides enough stability to safely manage the lifting forces of massive, giant Pacific halibut. Beneath the hull, baitfish clouds trace the feeding zones where giant Pacific halibut rise along steep bottom contours. High-energy bait is essential for attracting giant Pacific halibut cruising along dim seafloor corridors.
Precision matters here, because even a single weak connection can fail against a surging giant Pacific halibut.
Each branch line must align perfectly along kilometers of mainline, targeting giant Pacific halibut territories.
Reinforced leaders are necessary to withstand the rotational power generated by massive giant Pacific halibut during ascent.
Segment by segment, the long line becomes a precise grid, engineered to intercept giant Pacific halibut along deep slopes.
Soon these hooks will descend into cold, absorbed light, where giant Pacific halibut feed along the bottom. With deployment underway, the system forms a descending path aligned to known giant Pacific halibut zones. As each hook drops, the long line extends into a silent corridor traveled by giant Pacific halibut. Surface markers keep the giant Pacific halibut long line traceable across shifting offshore swells. The long line settles into depth ranges favored by giant Pacific halibut, resting along cold sediment plains. Out here, only predators like giant Pacific halibut navigate these quiet bottom corridors. Precise placement ensures baits intersect the lateral paths taken by feeding giant Pacific halibut. The giant Pacific halibut longline now drifts silently over deep terrain where giants search for food. These movements mimic wounded prey, drawing giant Pacific halibut toward the wading gear.
The captain maintains alignment along a productive contour where giant Pacific halibut routinely patrol.
In these twilight layers, giant Pacific halibut approach unseen, sensing vibration and scent from afar.
With the long line soaking, the crew waits while giant Pacific halibut drift across deep feeding lanes. Somewhere below this moving hull, giant Pacific halibut patrol the bottom contours in near total darkness. Each silent hour raises the likelihood that a large giant Pacific halibut discovers and approaches the baited hooks. Past records help forecast how many giant Pacific halibut may strike during a well-placed soak. With soaking complete, the crew prepares to haul and learn whether giant Pacific halibut have taken their bait.
First contact forms when subtle movement reveals a halibut testing scent and motion along the long line.
Tentative touches often precede stronger feeding responses that place real force on the line.
Even the slightest halibut pull sends recognizable signatures into the vessel's instruments.
A committed strike initiates real transfer of force between halibut weight and industrial gear.
Once hooked, a giant Pacific halibut generates deep, pulsing surges that climb through the entire system.
Lateral runs mark the beginning of a prolonged fight characteristic of powerful bottom-dwelling halibut.
A single large halibut can influence dozens of hooks along the main line.
Retrieval must start cautiously to avoid sudden shock loads from the struggling giant Pacific halibut.
Heavy strain confirms that a substantial giant Pacific halibut remains locked onto the hook below. Human control complements hydraulic power when countering the unpredictable pull of a giant halibut.
Vertical ascent gradually drains stamina from large halibut while increasing tension in the topside.
Rolling maneuvers increase torque on leaders and test the integrity of every connection.
Angle changes reveal when a giant Pacific halibut attempts to regain depth.
Drum speed must stay controlled to balance recovery efficiency with structural safety.
Approaching safe limits signals that the giant Pacific halibut remains in full resistance.
As energy fades, movements become slower, yet still capable of stressing the gear.
Near surface depth marks the transition from deep water contest to final approach.
The gear condition reveals the severity of encounters that remain hidden underwater.
Abrasions along the leaders indicate previous encounters with other halibut on the same set.
Approaching daylight triggers the most unpredictable phase of halibut behavior.
The first surface signs confirm that a massive, giant Pacific halibut is seconds from breaking through.
Timing becomes critical as the crew prepares to control a thrashing, giant Pacific halibut.
Even before breaching, giant halibut reveal size through distinctive shadow patterns.
Maintaining vessel positioning helps minimize dangerous line angles during final moments.
Final outbursts represent desperate attempts to shake free from the embedded hook.
Industrial crane systems stabilize giant Pacific halibut loads, far too heavy and unstable for manual handling alone. Transferring weight properly prevents catastrophic failure across stressed hardware. Coordinated teamwork ensures safe control of dense halibut mass. Partial suspension reduces force transferred through the longline.
Even exhausted halibut can generate sudden movements capable of injuring crew.
Controlling lateral sway is essential when landing exceptionally heavy fish.
Careful descent protects both equipment and valuable halibut meat.
Lowly. Preparing landing zones reduces hazards during high-force impacts.
Initial deck contact often produces the strongest physical reaction of the entire fight.
Patience and restraint prevent unnecessary damage during chaotic final struggles.
Gentle redirection maintains product quality for high-value markets.
Exhaustion naturally ends the conflict without requiring excessive force.
Removing hardware carefully preserves the marketable yield of each specimen.
Length documentation ensures compliance with strict halibut regulations.
Official weight readings influence trip economics and future stock assessments.
Prompt cooling protects texture and quality of large halibut fillets.
Cold storage marks the beginning of a long logistics chain stretching far beyond the vessel.
Successful voyages depend on repeating this demanding harvest cycle many times.
Vessel stability supports heavy operations, but also requires careful energy planning offshore.
With halibut secured below, attention shifts toward the final high-pressure haul ahead. Increasing weather challenges coincide with preparations for the voyage's final halibut retrieval. Harsh surface conditions amplify risk during recovery of massive giant Pacific halibut.
Dense presence of large halibut suggests several hooks may hold heavy fish simultaneously.
Electronic signatures confirm significant halibut activity near suspended line sections.
Combined force from multiple fish can strain even industrial longline systems.
When more than one giant Pacific halibut engages, retrieval becomes far more unstable.
Early retrieval stages determine how well the system absorbs unpredictable tension spikes. Mechanical vibration signals extreme force channeled from deep water halibut.
Uneven rise patterns complicate timing and coordination during heavy hauls.
Human stability becomes critical when vessel motion amplifies halibut force.
Visual confirmation signals that coordinated landing procedures must begin immediately.
Simultaneous lifts demand precise coordination between deck crews and bridge operators.
Chaotic geometry increases risk of tangles and sudden shock loads. Each breach can destabilize deck operations if not anticipated correctly.
Managing sequential landings demands rapid but controlled response from trained crews.
Dividing responsibilities prevents chaos when multiple giant Pacific halibuts reach the surface in rapid succession.
Exceptional size increases difficulty across every stage of landing. Structural limits approach rapidly when suspending extreme halibut mass. Combined catches of this scale represent the voyage's highest economic impact. These last movements test the endurance of every connected component. Rough seas magnify hazards during moments of maximum halibut force.
Controlled reactions prevent near misses from turning into serious incidents. Declining motion signals the end of direct physical conflict with the giant fish.
With battles concluded, focus shifts toward transporting premium halibut safely to shore. Returning to shore begins the next stage in the halibut's long commercial journey. Safe arrival completes the most hazardous phase of the giant Pacific halibut supply chain. Transferring fish carefully preserves the quality secured offshore by the crew. Temperature control now dictates how well halibut freshness is maintained. Only premium-grade giant Pacific halibut advance to top-tier markets worldwide. Competitive bidding determines real-time value of each fish harvested offshore. Precise classification ensures transparent traceability from ocean to consumer. Experienced operators match specific halibut sizes to tailored culinary uses. Standardized portions support consistent menus across global restaurant networks.
Cold chain logistics sustain quality during long-distance export operations.
Final mile delivery closes the logistical loop linking sea and city. Restaurant preparation begins with careful handling of delicate white halibut flesh. skilled butchery ensures consistent texture and cooking performance. Moderate seasoning highlights the natural flavor preserved from offshore handling. Controlled heat retains moisture within the lean halibut fillet structure.
Finishing techniques enrich flavor without overshadowing the fish's clean profile.
Presentation reconnects diners to a journey beginning on distant fishing grounds. Few guests realize the offshore risks taken to deliver each halibut meal.
Each bite reflects coordinated effort from fishermen, processors, and transport crews.
As one voyage ends, a new hunt for giant Pacific halibut always waits beyond the horizon.